Air 5052, Lone Star, number 2, wind 2506, runway 26 right, clear to land.
Last time on FS MaNiA, we departed Key West International Airport in the beautifully detailed Citation C700 Longitude for a 597 nautical mile cross-country flight to the Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. Currently, we are cruising at flight level 280, preparing for the arrival into Atlanta. Welcome aboard. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the flight. Cruising happily along, 470 knot ground speed, 325 knots indicated airspeed, and that's a true airspeed of 475 knots, 474, give or take. And we're bouncing in and out of the barber pole. Haven't got any overspeed warnings. I think we're safe here, this altitude. And if you look, I've put the NexRad weather on the PFD, and you can see that we've got a lot of weather that's we're going to be dealing with in the descent. That's could be a little bit concerning. And if we look at ForeFlight, it's agreeing somewhat, and usually they do, but you can definitely see right in here is some red areas that we would definitely want to avoid. Our arrival starts right in here. Can't remember if it's Larry or Lars. We'll look here in just a second. But looks like it's going to take us away from most of the bad stuff. And let's just take a quick look at the arrival. It is the Jedi 2 RNAV bringing up the plate. And let's see, we're coming in here at Lars, so that's where it starts at flight level 240. And we're at 280 right now. And our target altitude that we're going to be concerned with is Jedi right here at 10,250 knots, and then after that Daffy at 8,000. And then on the approach that I've looked at, let's close this one, and the RNAV 27 left approach right there, you can see that we'll intercept the initial approach fix Silva at 7,000. So those are the key numbers, and then depot is our final approach fix at 2,800 feet, and that is for the RNAV 27 right approach, which is what we'll be looking at. So we're in the turn. Let's go back to my map view right here at Larry, and this is a good time to start descending. And before we do, I know we're going to be needing some ice protection, so we'll bring that on in preparation, and be sure we've got the spoilers armed. There we go. Ground spoilers are armed. And I'm going to dial us down to the 10,000 that we're looking for. There it is right there. And we're going to use V-speed to come down, but I'm going to slow us up just a little bit. Auto throttle's doing its thing. And we'll come into the VC mode, a VS mode, and start down at 1,000 feet a minute, and then we'll adjust and see how it goes. We'll adjust. There's some things that we can look at that'll help us determine if that's good enough. Let's see if I can zoom out. Yeah, so this banana right here is telling us where at this speed where we'll come out at our selected altitude, where we will level off at 10,000. Bottom of descent, that's what I was looking for. So
destination ATIS is 119.65.
Thank you for flight. I have that already plugged in and waiting to get close enough to pick that up. And meanwhile, I can see that at this current speed and rate of descent that we will not make our crossing restriction at what was the fix? Jedi. Yeah, Jedi. So I'm going to dial us down a little more. You can see that'll bring it in, and we come in here and we can see Jedi. It's right there, and that's a little better. We're going to slow up a little bit as we go in, so that should be close. If I want to really make sure we're okay, I think we could go down a little bit quicker. and we keep our speed up, and that'll get us in the ballpark right there. So that's without VNAV operational, which it is not so far on the G5000 default. We will just have to use some of our own rough calculations and tools that we have to make sure that we get down, and I think that'll get us there. So pretty happy with that. The clouds are really pretty interesting. They look great. Sun's going to go down. It's right now about 5:25, so pretty close to sunset, so we should have some pretty views depending on whether we're in the clouds or not. So a little strange how this does with NextRad. I don't think it really typically does that, but I guess it's just going to give me a 100-mile radius maybe of my flight. So let's zoom ourselves back into the 50, and we'll see how we are. All this looks red up here. I'm not seeing it on ForeFlight, so shouldn't be, I'm not really too alarmed, but we'll see. Hopefully it'll be okay. Hadn't had any ride reports from anybody in front of me yet, so we may be the ones to test it out. So we're going to go ahead and set up our V-speeds for the arrival, and just in terms of fuel, we're going to burn total on this trip about 35 gallons, about 2,245 pounds. So that's going to bring our landing weight down to about 30,000 pounds. So for that, our approach speed, 130 knots, based on the chart, is good, and we'll cut that on. And then VREF, which is the speed we want when we cross the threshold, is 118. I think I might have seen some lightning off to the side. So enter that, 118 VREF. Let's cut that on. So that's done. All that looks good. We have FMS set up as our source, which is what we want. And we have loaded the approach. We have not activated it, and we will need to do that once we get in a little closer. And let's see, I believe we can activate it before we get to Poobah, and that will take us then to the initial approach fix. So I think that's all set up. Just monitor our descent and our speeds and the weather, and prepare for our arrival into Atlanta. I'm just going to go ahead and ask you to fasten your seat belts for the descent, and just to be on the safe side. And we'll cut up our cabin light just here, our cockpit light just a little bit, so it doesn't get too dark on us in here. Just went through transition altitude, have not yet picked up the ATIS yet, but looking at ForeFlight, looks like 29905 is our closest, so we'll set those in for right now. And these clouds look like they might have some bumps in them, so I'm thinking that we'll be wanting to reduce our speed a little bit at least, so we don't get jostled around too much. So drop it on back, and looks like we're still doing okay for reaching our target of 10,000 at Jedi, and then after that we'll go 8,000 for Daffy, and then 7,000 for Silva. And that should set us up for a nice GPS RNAV approach into runway 27 left. So it's been a fun flight. I've enjoyed it.
0 and heavy rain.
Heavy rain.
Few clouds at 1,100 feet, a few clouds at 4,000 feet, a few clouds at 12,000 feet. Temperature 22. Dew point 10. Altimeter 29.92.
92.
Runway 26 left ILS, runway 27 right ILS, runway 27 left ILS, runway 28 and ILS, runway 26 right in use. Landing and departing runway 26 left, runway 27 right, runway 27 left, runway 28 and runway 26 right. VFR aircraft say direction of flight. All aircraft read back hold short instructions. Advise controller on initial contact. You have kilo.
Kilo. And you and I both know they're not landing on all of those runways. So Atlanta uses the inner runways for departures, the outer runways for landings. And so for us it's 27 left, and on the other side it would be 26 right, and we'll be landing on the south side. Since we're approaching from the south, that makes sense, the south side of Atlanta. So let's keep our head in the game here. Just check in on ForeFlight here, and you can see we're a little less than 25 miles now from Jedi, which is right in there. And there's our approach into Atlanta. Everything looks good. We're 60 miles out from destination. So just in case we get busy here, we'll go ahead and set our lights on. This will be coming down through 10,000 here shortly, and I'll zoom in. Probably need to go ahead and start slowing this up a little bit more. Let's see. Wookiee, there's Jedi. Yeah, we're going to be hitting 10,000 right there before Wookiee. That should be fine, and we'll bring our speed back just a little bit now. We can always pop out the speed brakes if we need to. I like to keep my speed up on the arrival. Typically coming into an airport like this, you've got other planes that are going to be ahead of you and behind you, and they're going to ask you to maintain a certain speed. So that's the nice thing about having the auto throttle into these. Now we're in the soup, IMC. So we'll just stay on the gauges, be sure that we get ourselves down in one piece. I hadn't had any rain yet, so I guess that's a good thing. Everything's red here. It's a little disconcerting, but so far we're okay. Just real quick pre-landing checklist. Our nav source we've set. Ground spoilers are armed. Landing lights are on. Flaps will hold off, and landing gear will hold off. We've gotten the ATIS. Ooh, some lightning out there. We will need to ditch that auto throttle before we get too much further along.
1831, 27 left, descend to 3,000.
So the way to solve that is bring the speed brake out. There we go. So the auto throttle brings the throttles all the way back to the point where it starts screaming for landing gear. We're not quite ready for that yet. And we'll bring our speed on back to 245. As close as I can get it with the 10 knot increment right now. And now we can dial on down to 8,000. And we're there. And we're still about 4 miles from Jedi. So we did okay. Coming out of flight level 280, we ended right where we needed to be, 10,250 knots at Jedi. And I'm just going to take a look and see if those speed brakes are deployed. Yeah, they're definitely deployed, and we don't need them right this minute. So retract them. and now we're on the way to Daffy, so we can bring in our vertical speed, and let's get down to 8,000. So right there will put us at 8,000 at Daffy, which is 1,000 foot per minute at 245 knots. So that's good. And just planning ahead, our next waypoint after that will be Graham and then Poobah. And so we will stand by. Someone came up from the cabin and asked me a question, so I told them they needed to sit down, and this was not the time. So, where was I? Yep, we're on the approach into Atlanta, so should be interesting. See how it goes. Coming down through 9,000. Yep, and once we cross Graham, actually, I think it'll be fine to activate the approach. It's a pretty much straight shot to Silva, and it'd be interesting to see how the aircraft. Sometimes it will swing out here and come back and intercept Silva, and so I don't know if that's what's going to happen. We'll find out. There's some rain. And I'm going to go ahead and dial us down to 7,000. Get our approach activated. Okay, so it made this leg active right here, and it's showing us going to Silva, which is only 5 miles away. And let's start our descent down to 7,000. I don't want to go at 1,500 feet a minute. There we go, 1,000. More than enough. And I want to start bringing our speed back.
Landing here. Landing here.
Come on. There it goes. So to avoid that, you can use your speed brakes, which will keep the power in it. So roughly 230 knots, and I'm going to zoom us in just a little bit more here. Oops, wrong way. Right there. And so what this thing will typically do is come way out here and then turn in. So I'm kind of curious to see if that's not what it does. We're in the turn now. Yeah, so if I didn't know that was happening, I'd be thinking there's something wrong here. I should be going to Silva. I promise you we're going there. Sometimes this actually draws that turn in there, but I've just recently updated. This is the working title G3000 mod, and it's 4.0, which is the latest one, which gives us the split screen, which is pretty neat, no doubt. There's the split screen. And so I know from experience, having flown this before though, that you get this kind of crazy arc that it's using to fly you into the final approach course, which is just fine with me. It does a nice job once it gets in there. And since we're at 7,000, I know that our next altitude we're going to want to come down to is going to be 3. So I'll put us there. And once we get past Silva, we can start down to 3,000. And we'll start slowing up and looking at being at 3,000 at depot. And then we'll start our final descent into Atlanta. And now I'm seeing quite a few other aircraft on the arrival, which is typical. at one point I could see those aircraft on here, and since this last update I have not been able to. I'm not sure why. Hopefully we don't have any issues with the other traffic. It is live traffic. Looks like everybody's pretty far along. I'm not worried about running anybody over just yet. I'm sure most of them are flying tube liners. And probably on our next trip, that's what we're going to be flying when we leave here. I'm thinking we'll probably fly one of the tube liners. Don't know which one yet. And I'm thinking we might also do a VATSIM flight, something I've not done on the FS MaNiA channel. I've flown on VATSIM. It's been a long time. I'm interested to see how things have changed. And actually I was a VATSIM controller for a brief period at the Atlanta Hartsfield Airport. I was a ground and clearance delivery ground and tower controller, certified. So that was good. VATSIM's when things go well, it's a great companion to fly with. I don't like any of the robotic ATC. I really don't. I just as soon either use my own or none at all. Alright, we've crossed Silva. I'm going to start us down now to that 3,000. And 800 feet a minute should be fine. And I'm going to pull our speed on back another 10 knots so we don't run over anybody. So about 20 miles out now from Atlanta. And let's look in here at our, we want to be down definitely in time for depot, so I am not seeing my banana. Let me zoom this out. There it is right there. So I've got to do two things. I need to slow up and increase our rate of descent. And make sure we get down to 3,000 before depot. So we're going to slow on up to about 190.
Landing gear. Landing gear.
No, we don't want landing gear just yet. We'll put the speed brakes out. How's that? And you see that requires some additional throttle, and then they don't get all bunched up about landing gear. I'm going to put the landing gear out, but I'll wait till we get ready to intercept the glide path going in. Look at the sun over there setting. Yep, looks like we're set up for depot just fine now. Okay, 3,800, there's depot. I am going to put these speed brakes out to slow us on further down. See, even with that. There we go. Okay, first stage of flaps, we'll bring those in. Coming up on 3,000, and should be starting down here momentarily. So we will ditch this. And there's the outer marker, and there's the approach mode, gear down. Second notch of flaps, just about got behind. I did get behind the airplane. I should have already had us in approach mode. but not to worry, we'll get down.
Average 5075, kind of departure, safe trip, y'all. Departure, average 5075.
And there's 135 knots right there. And gears down, we've got 2 notches of flaps in. And I'm going to take over the auto throttle with any luck.
Nothing, clear for takeoff, 26 left, United 209.
There we go, I've got control. And let's slow it up.
203, thank you for United.
Okay. So that's our runway right there. See the sun, Mr. Sun. Hello, Mr. Sun. 1,000 foot above the ground, 137 knots. I'm happy with that. 135 knots. And 130 is what we want. This is surreal looking out here. These colors. And coming up on 500.
500.
Full flaps.
500.
Check. 120 knots. Runway in sight. Autopilot away. Man, this is low vis. Low vis. Back on center line over here. We got traffic. That's the problem with live traffic. Somebody just ruined my... It is what it is. Alright. And we're looking for a turn off.
Delta 587, depot inbound for 27 left.
Delta 587, line tower, the wind through 250 with 7, make 7 left for the land.
Delta 587.
Looks like one coming up right here. Really bad weather, and we had a runway incursion. Did I say that right? We're gonna have to report that to the FAA. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Atlanta Hartsfield International Airport. I want to thank you for flying with FS MaNiA. I apologize for the situation on the landing. Those things do happen. A good landing is a landing you can walk away from. A great landing is a landing you can taxi away from. So there's that. We'll clean up the airplane, bring up the flaps, and we'll start our APU. APU's getting started, and take these off, and anti-collision lights probably should not be on. I can take down this cockpit flood just a little bit so we can see better, and let's see if I can get myself zoomed in where I can see everything being red. Let's get rid of next rad. There we go. Now we can see the airport a little better. see where we need to go. Okay. And I do have that taxi light on, right? Yep. Hard to tell. Now if we can get to the gate without running over anybody or having anybody run over us, that'll be a plus.
1493 is 2 South Quebec.
So what we're going to want to do is come up here and take our first right. So that was exciting. You know, these are the kinds of things you can't really plan that well in Flight Simulator. And live traffic does tend to be a challenge, especially when you're not using any ATC. So one of these days we'll have all that together. That's the advantage of flying on VATSIM, at least, is that hopefully you have a little bit less of that. So we're going to be crossing over runway 27 right, 9 left, right here. We'll try to
Approaching runway 09 left.
Thank you. Try to make sure there's nobody coming. Like we're clear to cross. We're back on that center line. Yeah, it's a dark and stormy night now here in Atlanta. And I don't see any other airplanes taxiing just yet. Alright, I'm trying to get outside views and I'm getting off the center line. So we're just going to have to stay in the cockpit here until we get parked. So there's a center line over here that we're going to take and see if we can find a gate over here on the left. And it's empty. And this one looks like it is. We'll work our way in there.
Got a 105 Heavy, Lima Alpha.
105 Heavy, Lima Alpha.
All right, that should be good. Parking brake is set, and we do have the APU cut on, so we'll start our generator, close our bus tie, and then we can ditch our engines. Let's go to the overhead and cut off that taxi light right there, and we'll call that good. So there's a few things we can do to clean up, cutting off some of our switches and everything, but we're going to skip over that just to expedite this video. It was quite an exciting approach and landing. It wasn't the best landing in the world, but it's okay. We did make it. And so I want to take this opportunity to just say thanks for flying with FS MaNiA. On the next flight, we should be flying from Atlanta to, I don't know where yet, but we'll be flying something a little bigger and probably a little faster too. So look forward to sharing that with you in the upcoming days. Until then, hope you're safe and healthy and have a lot of time to do some flight simming during the epidemic. So from FS MaNiA, so long. next time on FS MaNiA. It's been a while since I've flown one of the tube liners, and I have not yet featured one on the FS MaNiA channel. So stay tuned to find out if the default MSFS 787 Dreamliner is any good, and if we can make a respectable effort as a 787 captain. Until then, from FS MaNiA, see ya.
Delta 54 Heavy, RNF football, T7 right, clear for takeoff.